If you picked bird photography as your primary hobby, congratulations, you picked the most difficult freaking thing in the world to do. It'll kick your butt. So every year, the calliope hummingbird migrates up from South America and ends up on these foothills right here in Boise, Idaho. I've been photographing them and I've been having a fantastic time. And I got some pretty awesome shots of them just sitting still, doing nothing. Every now and then he'll stretch his wings out a little bit, and that's fun. But I have not been able to get a shot of him flying around, which reminds me that all of this camera equipment, all this fantastic stuff that we have, it just doesn't make it foolproof. There's a lot of things that you need to do as a photographer to nail the shot that's beyond just equipment. These new mirrorless cameras and their autofocus systems have made it pretty intuitive, actually easy to start capturing those birds in flight. For years with the old DSLR systems, I made it a point to stick to the larger birds because you kind of just have to keep it in the box to make sure that it, to make sure that you get that motion. These mirrorless cameras today, the autofocus point tracks all over the screen, which is absolutely fantastic. You can use the tracking mode, put it on the bird, and it just kind of follows it anywhere. However, the key to getting that type of performance is to set your camera up right. I'm going to walk you through step by step how I set up my camera, and I'm going to start with step one, and that is put the camera in autofocus continuous. Now, if you have a Sony, I can walk you right through this, but know that any of the cameras that you have these same settings. Nikon, it's called AFC, and the Canon, if I'm not mistaken, it's called AI Servo. What I like to do with my cameras, I like to have a hot button on the back of the camera that I just press and I can switch through the different modes. Makes it super easy out in the field. Sometimes I'm not photographing birds. I know that's crazy to think, but when I'm not, I like to quickly just go back to single, and then additionally, sometimes I like to go into manual focus. So step one, autofocus continuous. What autofocus continuous does is it allows you to continually maintain focus as you're holding down the focus button. I use back button focus on every camera, and I have since the day I started photographing birds. Somebody gave me that tip years ago and I just stuck with it. Back button focus allows you to do is to hold down the back button on the camera. You set your trigger button to always be able to take pictures whether the picture is in focus or not. I'll show you real quick how I set that up. Undoubtedly, the most impressive feature of these new mirrorless cameras is the 3D tracking mode. It's like cheating. Honestly, so easy now. Once again, I'm going to show you with the Sony how I set it up, but I also have a quick button that I like to access, and I can switch between those different tracking modes. I also have turned off some of the tracking modes so that I can quickly go between different types and only the types that I want. Specifically, I use AF Tracking 3D small, large, and wide. Basically, the small pinpoint one allows me to find those little birds that are hidden up in the bushes, and I can just kind of put that dot on his eye as I'm looking through some of those leaves. Those really tough situations. The larger one, it's, if the bird's out on a stick or something and I see it coming back and forth to a spot, it gives me a little larger spot to grab onto that bird. I use that for some of the medium-sized birds. If I see a bird flying towards me and it takes up a lot of the screen, like a heron or maybe a large hawk of some sort, I'll take the entire screen, which is the 3D tracking wide, and just let the camera figure it out. And the good news is, at least the Sony camera figures it out pretty often. So that's it with the camera settings. Pretty basic. Make sure you're in AFC, which is pressing the button and it's continually holding focus on your target. Make sure that you have back button set up and your front button to continually take pictures whether you're in focus or not. And the third thing is if you have one of these new mirrorless cameras, put it in the tracking mode. The camera does a lot of the work for you. We know that the cameras don't do all of the work. This is where you come into play. It's important to put yourself in the right position to get the shot. I like to set myself up in places that I like to call runways, spots where I know the birds are coming in and out of. It's difficult in the middle of the woods to photograph a very erratic bird moving in and out of the trees. It plays havoc on the autofocus systems, and it'll play havoc on your mental state. However, when you're out in the open and you have a fence post, or if you have a spot where swallows are coming in and out of a spot to set up their nests, and you can see that they're repeating this behavior over and over again, that's your cue, and that's when you know you're in the right position. Additionally, when birds are in the mating stage, you'll see them flying back and forth from different perches and singing out their song. When you see that they're coming in and out of those areas, try to pre-focus on something near where they're landing. Anticipate and try to grab that focus as early as you can as they're coming in for that landing. Which leads me to one of my other hot points, and that is finding a spot to pre-focus on. Recently I was photographing yellow-headed blackbirds, and I noticed they would come back across the marsh. However, I kept missing the focus because I had focused too far on the background, or I would grab the tree which was in front of me too quick, and that short amount of space where they were flying between I just couldn't grab. Until I noticed there was something right there in the foreground that I could grab onto that was near where they were flying. Once I did that, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. Every time those birds would fly by, I was able to grab them in that short amount of time and fire off a lot of shots. Money. Make sure you pre-focus on something that's in the area that you know the birds are traveling through, and it'll save you tons of headache. Sometimes birds just surprise you. A bird comes flying across the horizon at you, or you drive up and see a hawk sitting on a post. And know that these techniques are not always perfect, but if you can just be patient with yourself and know that the basics are try to get focus on the bird as quick as you can, even if it means it's far away. Start tracking it in. If it's perched on a post or something where you anticipate that it's going to fly, make sure you keep that continuous focus on and anticipate him being able to move away. But above all, be patient with yourself. I take a lot of misfires. Countless. As a matter of fact, in 20 frames per second, 30 frames per second, on a great day I might get 20 of them to be okay, and on other days I get 2 out of 20. And it all depends on how fast those birds are moving, whether or not I was surprised by their behavior. But more importantly, remember, these cameras aren't perfect, and neither are you. Guys, this is a fun hobby. I love it. I love talking about it. I love going out and doing it. And bird in flight is the epitome of bird photography. Put your equipment to the test. Get out there, try to capture some of those birds in flight. And if you capture something cool, tag me on Instagram. I'll put a link to my Instagram down in the description. I appreciate you guys. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you next time.
I think I have a tick. But we saw a calliope hummingbird.
If you're into bird photography, congratulations! You picked the hardest kind of photography there is. Good job.
Are you making fun of me? I feel like you were making fun of me.
I loved that. I loved it so much. I was like, I want to say that. That sounds great.